Welcome, Dr. Saylor.
Good evening again. So I'm here to talk and share with you some information regarding the California Department of Public Health's guidance related to cohorts. So the general guidance came out just recently, August 24th. CDPH issued the initial cohort guidance. They followed up September 4th with some clarification as many public health officials and school districts were concerned that the cohort groupings would allow for districts and county offices that serve more significantly impaired students to actually provide those services. The initial guidance was 14 students and 2 adults, which would definitely limit your ability to support students in medically fragile or severely handicapped classes. So the new guidance is 16 total students, and or 16 total individuals, and that's a combination of all students and instructional staff. Those individuals may only interact with their particular cohort. They can't share cohort or run a hybrid model like we've discussed with some of our other programs. They just need to stay together. There is one difference to that. Preschool staff may oversee 2 cohorts as well as childcare staff, but that's not related to school. And one caveat is our related service providers, folks like our speech pathologists, school psychologists, occupational therapists. They can see students in multiple cohorts, but they really want to limit it down to individual interventions and practice appropriate safety protocols. So with the target groups, the state prioritized students with disabilities. I believe the advocacy groups really pushed on the state, given some of the significant challenges students with more significant disabilities faced in the spring. And there were some pretty unfortunate stories in the media about the lack of services that some students received. The other target groups are English learners, students at high risk of learning loss, students at risk of abuse or neglect, foster youth, and students experiencing homelessness. So with our focus, I'm looking at students with disabilities as that prioritized group and looking at our most needy students, which would be our students in our special day class program. So in looking at our current class structures, possible cohorts could be an AM and PM preschool cohort, or we could do an alternating day, an A group, a B group, a 1-2 cohort, a 2-3 cohort, a 4-5 cohort, and those are all existing classes. And then a 6-8 cohort, which could also be a 6-7 cohort, or a 9-12 cohort, and possibly an 8-12 cohort. And the reason for that is the numbers in our cohorts, and this is based on some information collected last week. We do have a number of students that are signed up for LVLA that would continue to participate in that program. However, we also have a significant number of students that had chosen to go into the hybrid model. So based on the students in the hybrid model and the number of staff in the class, we would have cohorts of 9 and 11 at the preschool level, 11 in the K1, 14 in the 2-3, 15 in the 4-5, currently 16 in the 6H, which causes me some reservations when the next student moves in, and the high school would have 8. And so that's the idea of potentially moving those 8th graders into the high school class, which would then change that 6-7 cohort to 13 and the 8-12 cohort to 13 as well. All right, so the potential instructional model that I'm considering is in-person instruction similar to our current schedule. And so that would mean students would start in the morning and then go home around lunchtime. That way we'd be able to offer them take-home lunches as they leave. Students in LVLA would continue with the same schedule. And since we do not have enough teachers to support 2 separate programs, LVLA and in-person, the LVLA students would continue to be a participant group with that class. However, they would be 100% virtual. And this is similar to what our teachers currently do in their classrooms, breaking students into small groups and rotating through with staff providing intervention. And then out of abundance of caution, I'm suggesting that should we decide to do this, that we go back to 2 days of in-person instruction weekly, and then the other 2 days would be our current virtual instruction. And then Fridays would be an asynchronous day for all. And as Dr. Nicholas said previously, we are sending out surveys to parents, and that includes a special ed specific survey related to this potential small cohort model.
So next steps. So the next steps are we're going to build a plan that's coherent and has some logistics and some tortoise-like movement. And tortoise-like movement in that we're going to be very cognizant of what our students need when it comes to these individual groups. We're going to look at logistics and our systems and vet all of our cleaning procedures, how these students are going to enter the class, how they're going to enter the campus, etc., before we have any cohorts walk onto the campus. Our plan is to come to the board on October 7th with a plan, and then perhaps implement that plan by October 13th. And as we move forward in this plan and we get better and better at doing this with bringing these small groups onto campus, we'll expand into other cohorts as needed. Students that Dr. Saylor mentioned, such as EL students, homeless students, or potentially students that need intervention on the school site campus. And then the county will watch those schools that went out with waivers and see what they're doing, see what they do well, see if they have any trip-ups, and if they do, we want to learn from those folks that went out early so that we have a cogent plan when we decide to bring more students onto campus to get them into our schools and potentially move on to the hybrid model.